Well, I think we are good to go. Thank you very much, ladies, especially, and gentlemen. This is the first time that we do those PDGA Talks. We want to make use of the gathering power of the World Championships. We have 45 countries finally to not only talk about competition and compete, but also trying to make something for the growth of disc golf. Having so many people from different countries and getting different points of view to try to make our loved sport grow. This is a very specific topic that we want to cover. Sofía and myself, we have had long conversations on this topic, and we are basically very engaged on trying to help the growth of disc golf in Europe, and this is one of the activities that we feel that we could be interesting. And this is the women's disc golf, how to grow disc golf, women's disc golf at all levels, from the grassroots level to the top level competition. We will have another edition of this talk in Bilbao, in the PDGA Europe Women's Disc Golf Festival that we will talk about later. That will be on the first weekend of October at my local home course with good food and tourism activities. We will play on the morning and have fun on the afternoon. It's going to be huge. And we'll make another summit because we want to gather all the possible information from you, the women, that you are the ones that know what is really needed. And well, first we will have a first introduction of every speaker, and then we will conduct the debate to get the most of it. So first, not too much need for introduction, but Holyn Handley from the United States. Holyn, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit how long have you been playing disc golf, and how do you see the base of women disc golf, at least in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, I just started playing at the end of 2019, so coming up on 6 years. As for women, the growth of women's disc golf in the U.S., I've seen a lot, both on the tour and more at the grassroots level. A lot of people have had success just starting their own kind of local groups, not necessarily always making them about score or competition, but more about just creating a space for women to get together and enjoy each other's company and play without pressure or feeling like they're being watched or judged or anything like that. I know a couple of girls when I lived in California who just started a league where they would see a woman out with her boyfriend or something and not playing, and they would give her a disc and say, hey, come join us on Sunday. And to see like that kind of take off, and now they're starting to have fuller fields on the amateur and pro divisions. So really all that grassroots level, I think, is what I've seen.
Thank you. Second, Anniken Steen, one of the best and most popular players in Europe, from Norway. Anniken, tell us a bit about your disc golf career.
Yeah, well, I started practicing more seriously in 2017 and had my first PDGA tournament in 2018. And from there, I ended up on tour.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah. When I started, there weren't too many women playing in Norway. We had issues trying to get full fields when we had tournaments, and it's kind of like the same. We do see the growth from like the grassroots now. Not more issues trying to fill the national championship. It's come a really, really long way.
Great. Third, we have Caroline Selnes from Nordic Female Open. You're a very enthusiastic, not only event organizer, women-only organizer, but she's also spreading that philosophy of, come on women, take a step ahead, organize. We are able to do that. We can help ourselves. There is something special in Nordic Female Open.
You're not going to ask me about my disc golf career?
Of course. No. First your disc golf and...
No, I'm one of those who started playing and realized that it's more fun watching other people play well. So those who can't do, they teach. No, I started in 2018. We were 4 women in one of the biggest clubs in Norway. Don't have to say much more than that. 4 women, 75 men. Joined the board there. And during the pandemic, we grew a lot. I'm going to talk later about what we did as well. But in the end, we were 470 members in our club, and we had about over 20 PDGA members of female members, which is real good. It's been awesome working on the local field and now expanding nationally and hopefully also internationally with this tournament and concept. So I'm excited to be here today.
Okay. We have Ida Udbak from Sweden, Nordic Talk Birdie to Me podcast. We have different aspects of female disc golf. Talk Birdie to Me with Jolene and Ida. We have two of the two that make that podcast. It's a long history female disc golf podcast in Swedish. And this year we have made an agreement with PDGA Europe to try to expand that model to a whole European model in English. And they have been long working on the communication side of female disc golf.
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-hosts of Talk Birdie to Me. And we are a podcast that talk about everything women's disc golf. It can be anything from how to get bathrooms on your C-tier events to analyzing the pro game. We think it's really important to talk about the women and give them the same attention that the MPO field gets. And that's all aspects of disc golf. Apart from the podcast, I'm also, as Caroline, heavily involved in the local scene, growing women's disc golf and TDing women's only events. I think that's really important. I've also dabbled a little bit into commentating. I've done live commentating for the Swedish National Championship and a little bit of post-production. So I have a little bit of different perspective, both from a media side, but also from local organizing.
Okay. Sofía Pereira, she is a member of PDGA Europe. She's a member of the board of directors on PDGA Europe, and she's heading the movement of the PDGA Europe Women. We are still constituting that, and she has a lot of insights and a long career.
Yeah, as Brian mentioned earlier, one of the things that it shocked me that it's around 7 to 8% PDGA members are females. And for me, I don't see a reason for it, or I don't understand it, and I'm trying to understand it. And just the fact that we are all sitting here, and thank you to everyone that is here and here, already makes a difference. Let's figure it out. Let's change it. I think we can do that. And if everybody just takes a little thing and does something locally or globally, if you want to make a difference globally, work globally. If you want to make a difference locally, work locally. But if everybody does just a little bit, and everybody that is sitting here is somewhat interested in it, I think we can definitely change that.
Absolutely.
It's a special sport. Let's.
And finally, we have Terhi Kyto from Finland. She's a member of the PDGA Global Board of Directors, and she's a member of PDGA Women Committee, and will show us insight from both sides of the Atlantic about the female topic.
Thank you, Calixto. Yeah, I've been involved with this sport since 2014 because I need to get my husband at this point to a date. So that was the beginning of my disc golf career. But how little I knew where it would finally end me up in the PDGA board. And I want to impact on things, and I also want to make a change. Along the years, I've been TDing a lot of events. I've been organizing women weekends where we have had some pro players teaching us techniques. And I want to, my mission is kind of like take away the obstacles that women tend to have when they are playing a new sport. You don't have to be perfect from the first round, but you can improve, and we can do it together. And why I applied for the PDGA board is that I think when being 10 years in the sport, I have both the women perspective, but I also have the European perspective that I want to get inside. And then, of course, I have a profession that may have something that I could also benefit the PDGA with my knowledge. So there were many things why I wanted to join. And every month I also take part in the Women Committee meetings where we discuss how we can improve the women's position in the professional level, but also in the amateur level. And I would say that the Women's Global event is one of the good examples where we want to bring women together, and I think we need more of that.
I would like to introduce the conversation. We always say that disc golf as a whole is like an iceberg. This is the tip of the iceberg, the beautiful tip of the iceberg. But to have a healthy sport, we need a big base for that iceberg. We need a really healthy grassroots level. We do our local events there in Spain. We try to convince women to participate. What do we need to grow the grassroots level of female disc golf? Maybe we think from our male mentality, say, okay, they want to compete. Maybe competition is not that important. Maybe there are some other aspects on competition. Maybe the social aspects has to do with it. I don't know, how do you feel? How could we make more women get involved into the disc golf as an organized event? I'm not sure how much of a competition does it mean, and how could we grow the number of women involved?
I think I'll just say a quick thing and then pass on the word, because I think people can speak better about this than I can. There is also a difference from what are we measuring? Are we measuring how many women actually throw the disc, or how many women are PDGA members? And between one and the other, there is also a difference. The more women are throwing discs and then competing in PDGA sanctioned events, because that's when you think that's interesting to become a PDGA member, because even just from a recreational point of view, it's a track of the events that you've been at, how you've improved or not throughout the years, and so so just women throwing discs is one thing, being a PDGA member is another, and I'm going to pass on the word to...
Yeah, I have a good example building on what you're saying there, because it's quite a big difference on throwing a disc and competing. So when I started playing in 2018, we had Trine Haugen, who is a co-founder of Nordic Female Open, who is now the grandmother of all female players in my area. He doesn't like that I say that. But he arranged Ladies' Days for the first time in 2018, and he had, 8 players or 12 players the first year, and then he doubled it next year when I joined in 2019. In 2020, I joined her on the team, and we managed to get 34 women, and the year after that, it was 40 women. Then we had to cap it at 60 the year after, and that was epic. Yeah, and that was playing disc golf, and we didn't get all of them into the weeklies. We didn't get all of them into the PGA, but we got a few. And we can see that not all men are PGA members either. So not all women need to be PGA members. But it's important to make room. So what we did, luckily, Trine has her husband in the board, I was in the board. They were really open in our area to accommodate. So they made the budgets to have the recruitment dates, but they also helped in the local tournaments with just the mindset of the play. Because we have to recognize that women do not play as quickly as men do when they first start out in the weekly. I still remember my first weekly. I was the last of T-pad every time. When I threw the disc, everyone else left before my disc had landed. And I didn't have time to see where my disc landed, so I just had to go and get my backpack and run after the guys. And I had to then, because the guys were standing around my disc, kind of make my way through the men to find my disc, and then have 4 men, because we had like 120 people in our weeklies, standing all around me and then discussing in the back, because they didn't know me, I didn't know the sports, completely secluded. And when I was putting, I was the last one to putt, and the men just left. And I remember Trine, she was on the car behind us, and she saw the men walking, and she's like, "Hey, guys, stop!" And she just stopped the 4 men and asked, "What are you doing? Do you want this girl to come back or not?" And that's what we need with everyone in the local place, to actually see what's going on here. Because we're so many men and so few women, the girls have to adapt so much to a boys' club that they don't know. But it's also the other way around. The boys have to also adapt to a women's culture that they don't know. So we need to talk more about it to start this. But back to the one with playing. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think one of the ways to grow any sport is that the participant has fun.
Yeah.
If you don't have fun, you're not going to come back. If you go and experience it for the first time, and it's stressful, like that kind of experience that you feel bad because you throw and then it's your turn again and again before you're... It's like, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore.
No.
So I think that that's a really important point, to make it enjoyable.
Yeah, and in my area, they managed to do that. So what happened actually was that the club next to us started having their own women's days. So then we were 2 clubs, and then they started the monthlies, and they put the timing perfectly. So the women got the kids food in the morning, they got the men to babysit, and then they got to go out and play. And we were like 30 women on just a Sunday going out because it was the perfect time. So then we got more people involved to organize. That's how Nordic Female actually started, because the locals were okay. We had enough thing going on locals, so how do we move the locals to compete in PGA tournaments? That's what Nordic Female started. Yeah.
Anniken and Holly, how was your experience coming from an average amateur women playing disc golf for the first time to become a full-time pro player? How was, from a women's perspective, that change?
Okay, yeah.
Well, so to start off, like in Norway, we'd never had like amateur level. When you started to compete back then, you went straight into playing pro. Not that it kind of meant that much to me at that point. It was still like, that was what it was. I didn't know anything else. But of course, at that time, when I started playing, we played always from the men's T-pass. There were no FPO layouts at all. You always had to play the layup game. The layup game. And that also made the game less interesting to me. Of course, I was challenged by the way that I wanted to throw as far as the men's. I see that today it's not as possible as what I thought back then. But when I was able to get into like the Pro Tour and I saw that we had actually FPO layout, it was easier to get birdies. It was more fun to play overall. And I also think that makes it more interesting for also spectators to see actual like shots where we can reach the basket and not just lay up for par on every single hole.
I mean, when I was getting started, I think the biggest challenge was just having full divisions, and it's kind of like a self-perpetuating problem. So you'll go to sign up, you'll see there's nobody signed up, and so you don't sign up. I felt like that happened a lot, and the way that it got better was just like kind of communicating, like the women communicating amongst each other of just like, let's get together and play, and then you have kind of a regular group, and then we can kind of everybody be like, hey, we're all going to go play this C tier or this B tier. And then when you see women are signed, you see there's already 3 or 4 signed up, you're more likely to actually go and sign up. So I think like really we as women kind of have to spearhead it a little bit. I think also, an effort that I've made while on tour is like offering clinics and offering lessons. And I've found that women are more likely to come to my clinic because I'm a woman teaching it, and it's a lot less intimidating than if one of the male players teaches it. So I think, like you said, like you guys leading the charge in your local areas, I think is really, really powerful. I think it's more welcoming and just a little bit less intimidating. And then when the women see that, like, oh, actually, the men in the sport aren't intimidating at all, and maybe they feel a little more comfortable kind of being a little more proactive themselves.
Yeah, just to tag on to what the story Caroline told us about her first experience playing in a league. That's really horrible. I'm sure you're not the only woman who has had that experience. But that's why I think it's really important to create spaces for women where they can be just the women, because that's how you get women to be comfortable in the sport and to create a community where they have friends, where they want to come back, where they want to play more. Locally, we have had women who said after they played with us for a few months, they were like, no, I'll never compete. Like, that's not my thing. Now they compete every weekend. Mm-hmm. because now they feel at home, they feel safe at the course, their game has developed because they spent so much time there, because they love the game. But without having that community of only women at first, I don't think that they ever would have gotten there. So I think that's really, really important to have a space for them, and not to expect things to happen like after a week or after a month or even after a year, but to be very patient and give things time. And I mean, it's the phrase, right? If you build it, they will come. So I think that's just create the space for the women, and eventually they will show up.
Yeah, and just to compete on top of that as well, us in the Nordics and so on, we're quite lucky with the culture here, with religion, with the beliefs, how we're seen in society. We started to talk with women all over Europe, Poland, Czech, Germany, and so on, and it's not the same. Women don't have the same status in the home and everywhere. So I think it's also important now that we're moving forward, because as we talked about outside, the sport has come so far. Like, I remember when I started watching DGPT the first year, and women played after the boys in the evening. Nobody watched the boys. When we played from the same tee pad, it was boring, sorry, but now women are playing exciting disc golf because we actually challenge. So we've done so much, but now it's also, I think, important for us to take the knowledge that we have and give that, and be able to give it down south, give it to other places. I played in San Francisco, and I managed to trick my friend to come and join us. I taught her disc golf on the course, and I had two men walking up to her and telling her how to throw while I was teaching her. One man actually stood behind her and touched her without talking to her first to show her a follow-through. And that's while I'm standing there teaching. So we have to see that that's not all the time, but many times women experience that in society in general. And that's why women also say we want the women's spaces. We want to train with women. It's also to compete, as you say, with length and everything. It's so much more fun to go and play with women, to see that you can actually challenge something and just feel that you actually can do something in the sport, I think, as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree everything that has been said here. But I also think that where we should focus, or where the community should focus, is girls, because they are the future disc golfers. Not all of them are pros, but there is also a very large amount of girls who could be the recreational players going forward. And I'm very involved in other sport, synchronized skating, that is very girl involved, and they also have the problem that when the girls grow up, they don't do the sport anymore. So I think that we don't have that kind of like base at all with girls, and we don't have the girls who drop out the sport because they don't do that when they are young.
But one more important thing there is one thing we've been working on in Nordic Female Open. We've had clinics during the tournaments. We always have a clinic. And one clinic we have was about menstrual cycle and sports, to actually train women on how to train, eat, sleep with the menstrual cycle, because it's very different. And one thing you're saying there with girls dropping out of sports is actually very science-based, because our body changes when we're 16, 17. So you can see that across all sports, that we go from this side to this. So we have to learn how to run again. We have to learn how to lift again, to use our bodies. And we don't know that, because that's new science. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Sofía.
And I think that is so important. And not only during adolescence, the changes are huge for boys as well.
Yeah.
But also what you brought up earlier, culturally. Yeah. Maybe it's not as accepted for a mom to say, all right, I'm going to go do a round with my girlfriends, I'll see you in 4 hours, and leave 3 kids and at home as well. And so I do agree that there needs to be a safe space and a space for women to develop at their pace, or for every athlete, regardless if it's male, female. There's people who have challenges physically, and I think that that's the beauty of this sport. If you can walk, you can play disc golf, basically. Yeah. And so I think that and we'll be talking about that later in the tourism part. But I also think that there's a phase in women's lives when they're pregnant, having children, that is also, you lose a lot of women to all sports during that phase. And then to come back from it, it has to be enjoyable. And golf has got the difficulty that kids can't make noise when you're playing. You can't have kids running around the course, basically. Yeah. And so having safe spaces for the kids while the moms play when they're in their 30s and stuff like that.
Sofía, I would like to, making use that you have the microphone, could you tell us about the PDGA Europe Women's event? And
we're so excited about this, you guys.
Okay, we have a question first, of course. If you give me that microphone, sorry. You can introduce yourself.
I have two questions. Did you ever experiment with playing just 9 holes or 10 holes, some smaller courses? And I'm very curious how the Lady Day looked like.
Yeah.
Like what kind of events?
Can I? Yeah. So we're actually now working on putting this in writing. Hopefully we get a website up because we want to use what we've already learned, put it on so people can recreate instead of, making the wheel again, inventing the wheel again. So first off, it depends, when you're doing it, it depends on how many women. Do you have women playing? Do you have different levels? But one thing that we saw is that we basically get in around 11 o'clock is a good time for women. We get them together first for a start, and then we split up into groups where we have training in putting and backhand, forehand driving, and last we had also what's called again inspill, upshots. Yeah, upshots. So you have training that you have like 20-30 minutes on each, and then we had a doubles where we had people who have played a lot before matching with people who haven't played and alternate. And they also did like shorter courses and so on. It's not a tournament in per se. It's to learn how to play the sport with the rules, kinda. And then we also got prizes up. So for the winners, but we also, what works well with women, I feel when there's a lot of prizes often we can get for women because men, you guys want us here and we're so grateful. And if it wasn't for the men in this sport, we wouldn't be playing either. So yeah, but to reward, just pick out winners and so on gives a community feeling with the women. So that's really helped. But what we've done in Nordic Female Open is that we have 3 days but 2 playing days. But we only do 1 round each day, and then we do a 9-hole final, just for the open cards, just for FPO, FP40, FP50, and FA1. So the rest of us can go and watch good disc golf. So we can actually watch other women play. So we had 63 players this year from 4 countries. So that was really fun because then we could follow and learn from the others. So 9 holes work really well for finals, actually, yeah.
I invited you having the screen. We are checking Facebook of Nordic Female Open, but of course feel free to search for Nordic Female Open. There's a lot of interesting information, so check that out. I was going to ask, sorry, Ida.
No, I was just going to add to Caroline. We've done similar, we have weekly clinics for women in our local club, and we structure it so we have 1 hour of clinic where usually one of us more experienced players, I mean, we're not pros in any way, but we know how to throw. So we teach the new players, and we have specific focuses every week, like backhand or the X step or just one small thing that we usually focus on, and then we go out and we play 9 holes together. And usually we don't score, we play a shorter layout, and it's just so you can practice what you've been working on during the clinic, and it's a lot of fun.
And of course, here you have the Instagram of Talk Birdie to Me. You can follow them on all the platforms of podcast platforms, and of course, check out Talk Birdie to Me on Instagram.
And before we talk about the festival, I also think that it's important when you start. So I have the issue that I also developed disc golf in Portugal, and it's a small community. I mean, 4 years ago we had 1 9-hole course, and now we have 8 courses. The number of women that are participating, they're distributed all over the country, so weekly leagues or it's difficult to get the numbers. And so it is super important for the whole community to be vested into this so that when you do go out and play, because 90% of my rounds are with men or with kids or with whatever. And so the flexibility of being able to almost mentally focus on your game if you are a competitive player while there's a huge amount of difference in what is on the card, and having that flexibility and being able to enjoy it is super important as well. And I think everybody can own that in a way, especially in the smaller developing countries where you just don't have the numbers.
Okay, so let's skip also Terhi and Sofía. Let's skip to that European women's event and global women's event. You know that in the month of September we have one year is the global event and another year is the European event. In this year we have expanded the European women's event from one weekend to the 4 weekends of September. It will be a series of events that are going to be sanctioned, and there will be like an overall classification on the writing of the rounds. But the basic idea is that the spirit of those events is very inclusive with women-friendly extra activities, those female-to-female camps or activities. And maybe you both can explain what's the spirit behind the European global event. And
Terhi, you want to go first with the global, and then I'll talk about the European?
I don't mind. You can start.
I'll start? Okay, I'll start with European. So basically we've taken Zoe's idea from a few years ago with the women's one weekend at every tournament that was under the hat of the women's event. The first, however many that were that signed up were waived the fee, and then there were prizes. This year, we're going to do something a little bit different. We've expanded it to 1 full month. The whole month of September, any event with the women's name on it, and especially if TD'd by a woman, that woman is then doesn't have to pay her fees to come to Bilbao the first weekend in October, which is a women's festival. So the whole month of September is the women celebrating European women's disc golf with events. They will all be put into, thank you PDGA, the global for technically allowing us to do this, because it is not easy, because now they have, instead of a one weekend, a full month of events with this. But they did it, they can do it for us, thank God. And then in the first weekend of October, we have a 3-day event in Bilbao, as Calixto was saying, which is the Women's Festival, and I think you're going to show something about that.
Let's show
so
the video first. It's 2 minutes, and we can.
But bring family. It's going to be good for everybody.
So the basic idea is showing. It's an event that we will play in the morning. We will have tourist and socializing activities on the afternoon. The Basque Country where I live, it's a beautiful place to go, even with your colleagues. There will be events for beginners. There will be clinics, and there will be beginner tournaments. So we will combine the competition and all the extra activities. It's a course that it's not extra tough. Let's say that the par would be something around 880, 900, something like this. So everyone will enjoy. And the basic idea is to try to make it every 2 years. So as a final celebration, all the TDs that will be TDing any of the European Women event will have free registration. This is Bilbao City. So the basic idea is to celebrate this golf all together with extra activities, not only top-level competition, which is like the excuse to play. There will be on Friday, we will have an flex start event, so that if you come with your husband can also play. He will be able to play on Friday. And Saturday and Sunday will be women's only. The rounds will be 1 round per day, and it will be mid-morning, so you don't even have to wake up very early.
Why? Because we're going out at night.
Of course.
There's going to be, I think that it's also important for us to talk to each other and socialize on a non-formal way, because that's when a lot of ideas come up, and hopefully to create projects together to make things happen. I think it's what we can learn from each other is super important, but then the work has to be done, and we need a team for that.
Yeah. So the basic idea is let's say if the idea works, but try to make events, and that is what I want to connect with the conversation that we have. This is a C tier. This is it's an amateur course. We'll have some beautiful, nice T-shirts that we have designed, and there will be produced a women-specific T-shirt that you can only get on events like this, so it will be a mark that you were part of the event. But how do you feel about those kind of events? Of course, there are some events that are pure competition, but those kind of events with extra activities, especially, for example, the first weekend of October, that we should have very good weather in Spain, and maybe in northern countries it's already even snowing. How do you feel about combining disc golf with other activities to try to make it more pleasant for are women motivated by different things?
I'll pass the word on for how you guys feel about it. I obviously like it because we've decided to do it, so I'm not even going to give you my opinion on that. But I do think it's important that the Flex start on Saturday is free of cost, open for everybody, male, female, anybody. Friday night, there will be a women's summit, and I hope that by then and after this, and this is broadcast, that we will have a fair bit of interest on how we can make working groups to make things actually happen. I think one of the things is that lack of human resources, as we talked to Caroline, there's not that many people. The few people that do a lot end up doing a lot. And then if we can all divide the work up by little and get people involved and enthusiastic, I think that's important.
In this event, we will have the PDGA Europe staff going there because we will have our annual summit there. Yes. So we will make the use of having people there. And we will have, for example, female clinics and beginner rounds and a lot of extra activities for women.
So back to Calixto's question, how do you girls feel about having a social aspect to... So having, for example, a tapas night and this kind of, like playing around in the morning and then having social activities associated to the event?
Me personally, I think that is a really, really great idea. If you look at other events for women, they do exactly the same, not only in disc golf, but like for marathons, like we have an annual big running competition, which is called Kokomila in Norway, and it's only for women, and they make like a huge festival where there's like activities, like they do a warm-up together on a stage, they have artists after the run, so I think you're onto something really good there, for sure, and it creates the connection that I think as women want more.
Yeah, it's an event, not a competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think for a lot of women, they don't do the competition because maybe they don't care too much about competition, but when it becomes a social and a fun thing and the competition's a small part of it, it becomes like this easy entry, and maybe they end up doing more stuff, but at the very least they've made a lot of friends and they've gotten into the disc golf community, which at the end of the day is really what we want.
I have a question for you based on your answers. I think I love your answers, but I also would like to consider, like, basically, if we have a pyramid, a sustainable growth requires a large base. But how do we keep the top of the pyramid also interested in that bottom base? So wanting to come, because in reality, if a 15-year-old with a lot of potential that has never touched a disc comes and then sees one of you two girls throw the disc and goes, that's what I want to be. Mm-hmm. She's not going to look at me and go, I want to be like her. For sure. So how do we keep, how do we, how do we keep that balance and enjoyable for all levels? I think that's really tough.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you get to our level, we have to think about obviously, like, making money and like how do we fit our whole schedule so that we're having a successful year and able to continue doing it. I think the model that we do with U.S. Women's, where we have it as a major, but then we also have all of those other levels there, is really great because like I get a ton of interaction with the junior players and with the amateur players. So I think it's hard to have a big pro event. That's a lot of work and a lot of money that goes into it. But I think if there's a big incentive for us to come play and be competitive. And then if there's also opportunity for us to kind of view it as like giving back and helping to promote that growth. I think a lot of the top female players want to do that. So if there's opportunities for us to interact with fans or to teach clinics, but then also have good competition, I think you would get more top level players there.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add on, I think events like that is, of course, hard to put, especially in Europe, since we have like a lot of winter, especially in the Nordics. If you put like the schedule it has to like be more on the off-season side for most of us. Our season is usually from February till October, so maybe like right after the last event, or it's probably better because people are always like preparing for the season. So like in January, it's maybe not the best time either. So right after or when our off season starts might be a good idea to easier get a hold of us also. And like we said, a lot of us pro players want to give back to our community, but it's hard when we have like a really tight schedule overall.
Our idea is to make it in general the first weekend of October, that we find is a good date, and in one Southern Europe country. So every 2 years, the next edition could be, for example, in Portugal, they have nice courses, or in Italy, in Milano, or in Greece, or in Cyprus. So some place that seems attractive, okay, I'll take a plane and go 1 week there.
But we could consider November if October is still in the season too, especially in the southern
maybe a bit
countries.
later, guaranteeing good weather.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have some money left to pay for some pro player to make a clinic. So maybe we can talk about that, and maybe we can get a pro player coming there. I would like to change a bit the conversation about the communication, making use that Ida is here with us. I don't know how many US female-specific podcasts. I remember one from Paige Pierce. How is female disc golf communication different from the general disc golf communication? And what is your feedback that you have a lot of experience there in Sweden on your interaction with female disc golfers?
We started our podcast because there basically wasn't any space where women were represented in Sweden in the media, and I think that's the case in whole Europe at least. I think that there has been podcasts with women, but they all kind of ended after a season. As far as I know, currently there's only us and the party that talks about FPO. And I think it's not that the men can't talk about the women, but I feel like they don't do it properly, to be fair. I think that it's often brushed over. It's maybe the winners, the podium is mentioned. Perhaps they talk about all the awesome putts that Holyn made at Cool, or the ace that Anniken got at Texas, right? Somewhere. Too many to count. Yeah, but they don't really go into the nitpicky, like what is the distance required to get the birdies on these courses? Do the women have this? What is the putting statistics? Like some people still talk about Missy like she doesn't have the distance for the courses, but that's clearly not true anymore. So they're not, I don't know, I don't feel like the women are as represented in media as they could be. So we felt like there was a void, and we wanted to fill that void.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me as a male disc golf consumer, I watch a lot of FPO game of Disc Golf Pro Tour, especially because in the US events, men play at night, so I always watch FPO, and I enjoy watching FPO. Me as an average Joe, as an 880 rated player, I feel that the top FPO play is something more human, because when you see the Gannons, it's like a video game or something, you know? So sometimes I feel more connected with the FPO game, and I personally feel that disc golf is one of those sports where the female divisions are exceptionally very good to watch and very entertaining, objectively.
I agree, 100%. And the guys in Portugal that are starting off and their first event is like 750 and then they start to go up. They watch FPO way more than MPO because that's where they actually learn, because the other one is just unreachable. It's something like, okay, I'm never going to throw that. So I think in FPO, and it has become a lot better, the coverage of FPO in the pro tours. I think it's the filming and it was when I started watching 4 years ago, sometimes there was no FPO coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I should mention, I specifically talk about podcasts. I think the Pro Tour has done a lot for the FPO field in the coverage. I mean, I remember when the live coverage started and we watched these blurry pictures on DGN, and the women didn't even get the full round because they started playing before, and then the men started playing, so they switched over, and it didn't really work well. But then as they committed to cover the FPO completely, and now recently, the last years, when Jomis also does the post-production, and everything is like gathered under the same umbrella, and it's very easily accessible, I think, I mean, that is making a ton of difference for sure. Yeah.
I also want to give some credits to those who interview us at the Pro Tour, because I think they're doing a really good job at asking the same type of questions, whether you're a woman or a man, because we see that in a lot of sports, the women are not treated the same at the interviewing booth, and I think they should get credits for that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and then going back to talking about podcasts, like a lot of the podcasts do talk about both men and women, but they'll kind of only cover like the top storyline for the women. They'll cover who won or who tragically lost. And then the men, they kind of will dig a little bit deeper. It almost feels like the men are kind of the default and the women are kind of like, okay, well, we should mention them. And so I think what like the Party podcast has done really well is like for a while there, Hannah would go and interview maybe some stories that weren't on the top card, you know, or they'll give interviews to women who like maybe they haven't broken through and gotten on that top card a lot and haven't been the main story, but they've had huge improvements or they've been having a really good year. So I think, you know, they do that on the men's side very well, and a lot of times it's because those are either male players themselves, and so they know everybody on the men's side, and it's very easy for them to find those stories and get into it. And it's a little harder for them to like cross that divide and come talk to the women, and many of them want to do it, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. Like there have been times where, you know, Missy or I have gone on like Tour Life and they're shocked at how competitive Missy actually is. Like they just don't have the knowledge of our personalities and how deep and interesting the FPO field actually is. So I think, you know, something on the media side we can do is continue to dig into more of the personalities of not just the top 5 players, but of that next couple tiers of players, because there's a lot of great storylines going in there. In particular, a lot of the young players, especially the young European players, watching like Ida Letomaki play and Yulia, like they're extremely talented for how young they are. So, you know, I would love to see those stories get a little bit more time.
I would say that I was covering on the European Championships, and there was a coverage for MPO and FPO. And the Junior Championships was also developing, and we finally had a coverage for the Junior MPOs, but there was no coverage for female Junior FPO, and it was Ida Letomaki, the other Ida Emilianese Kika from Czech Republic, and it wasn't a spectacular card, a spectacular show, so we really feel that it should be covered more.
Yeah, to add to Holyn's, I think that this is really a critical point, like creating idols for the fans and creating profiles, because that's how you also grow your worth for your sponsors, is for you to become profiles, and that isn't just a top player, but that it goes deep. And we want to be able to help build that. We want to create idols. We want people to know about both the current upcoming players, the top players, but also historic players. We want people to know who Juliana Korver and Birgitta Lagerholm are, and yeah, just to be able to relate to all different type of players.
And I just want to turn the conversation a bit, because I completely agree with everything that is saying here. And I think it's amazing that we get podcasts like you guys, and also that PGA Europe actually supports, so we can have an English version as well, which kind of breaks the glass ceiling a bit, that we come through with our voices. It's a start, and it's really good. But I also have to say that men cannot be women. And we as women actually need to talk about women. So, well, we're not that engaged on Facebook discussions, for example. We should be. So there was, what we've started in Nordic Female Open is that we started a Snapchat group for only women players in Norway. So we have over 50 women there, Snapchatting, playing all over. And when Cool Amateur Open was this year, we had catastrophe with the sign up last year. We didn't get that many women because it was first come, first served. That rule has to be looked at, by the way. But here in the Snapchat group, we started early in the day. We're like, okay, who's signing up? It's at 7. Are you guys ready? And then we got to start the conversation. How's the course? Who are we traveling with? Where are you sleeping? How is to get there? Because us women, we behave differently than men. When we sign up for something, we know how to get there. We know where we're sleeping. We know who we're playing with. But if we don't know if they get a place, we do not sign up. Like you said, if there's not anyone we know, that's why we need to create these communities and be able to play. So, and we have to, as women, talk. We have to create spaces for women to get those conversations in. And we have to also look at, me and Sofía talked a bit about this, how can we give more back to the boys who give places for women? Because the boys do a lot for us. They do amazingly. They build courses for us, for God's sake. They do so much. So how can we give back to the boys who give to the females as well? We need to turn the conversation a bit and make the boys better at giving places for women. So I think that's an important talk. But I had one comment on the summit in October, the festival. How do we get women to sign up? Because this festival is awesome. We like everything in it is epic. But how do we get women from Poland, Czech, random women to sign up? Not just the same women. How do we get them there? And in Norway, we have Anniken, you've been with us. Katrina Staalesen does a great job, Bjørkås, who have damer I disc golf, so women in disc golf in Norway, where we have a community going on. So this is places where we can sign up. I want to go this. Does anyone else want to join us? To get that conversation started in the countries, locally, and so on, I think that's a good way to start. So that's not just give the men, like, you need to make this for us, but how can we as women also, oh, can you get this for us? Then I know more women will come next year. Never the same year, sorry guys. We don't come the same year, we come the next year. So I think that's...
Yeah, I agree, 100%. And start everybody, like, we want to organize and build a PDGA Europe Women's Committee as well, but we are interested in having people participate in this and talk about what we can do and how can we do it in ways that make sense. Do join the Facebook group of PDGA Europe Women's. At this point, that is the only channel that we have. It's a group, so you really can join and post in there and speak in there.
And you don't need to be 900 rated or know much.
It's for everybody.
Yeah. So I've sacrificed Isabel, my friend Sofía, for you. So you will get you will get our TD from NFO to join you.
And you're right. How do we get women to sign up to this festival?
You have it in the screen. 107 members right now. Yeah. PDGA Europe Women Facebook group is like the phase where we can make those kind of brainstorming, and Sofía is working on that to get all those initiatives before.
And I think these communities are very good to share knowledge. We don't have to invent the wheel every time. But I have also experienced that even if we share experiences, at some point it really needs to be very hands-on examples how to do things, because people may understand something differently than you are explaining. We have in Europe, we have language barriers. Everyone is not that good in English, for example. So when we have this kind of gatherings together and sessions that we share information, I think that very practical examples are needed so that people kind of have, and what I would also like to see is that, because the consistency matters. If you organize something once, there might not be that many people, but if you keep going and people talk about it, then you will always get more and more participants.
Yeah.
And we had one example there of a tournament in Norway where they created a whole FPO course, or layout, sorry. And there wasn't that many women signing up. There was like 2 women. And next year, there was 10 women signing up, but they didn't build the FPO layout because there was no women playing the last year. So it's like you can't give up in 1 year. So that's what we did as well in my local area, because as you say, we had FPO only. But then we started to see that, oh, we have so many women that don't want to compete because they're competing against the good ones that are playing for 8 years. Yeah. So we started with FA1, and we had 2 players in FA1. Okay, that's good. Let's continue. And now we have a big FPO and big FA1, and they're looking at opening an FA2 as well as some of the weeklies and so on. But you have to make it grow organically, like the sport has done with boys for, how many years now? 60 years? 80 years? 60 years?
50, I think.
50?
How long is disc golf?
So,
50 years.
How long disc golf in?
But I think it's also getting discs into girls' hands, kids' hands, right?
Kids, kids.
Because I notice we do activities in schools or in summer camps, and you go, they love it, they really enjoy it. They go home without a disc. Yeah. It was a great day, but they're not going to throw discs because they don't have a disc to throw. So we need to get
in PDGA Europe. We have created 3 programs called "Put a Disc in Their Hands," and they can buy some premium discs at €8 per unit, €5 per unit, the medium, and €2 the used discs in packs of 50. So I'm using it myself. I go to my higher schools around my course and I give classes and I get sets of 50 discs. So every girl that comes through that course goes home with a disc. So you have the chance that she goes to the course that is nearby.
I think this is great, but I want to challenge you a bit. Who is going to use the program? Who is the users of that program?
Enthusiasts from some local clubs that wants to do it and say, okay, I'm going to give classes to the higher schools on my free time, and I want to have sets of 50 discs so that they...
And then we come back to one of the issues as well. We women, we learn differently also than men in this sport. When it comes to TDing, when it comes to doing things, because you men are epic at one thing, is that if you're ill, you're doing a weekly, you're calling your best buddy, say, I don't know, you don't know metrics, you disc whatever, but you're doing it, and I'm doing it with you on the phone. A girl would say no. So to get a program, yes, but how do you do it? As you say, we take things differently, and many of the women who does things, they do it alone, and they do it for so long until they're sick of it. So how can we teach women to train others to join them, to also do these things? So, okay, I'll do ladies' days, you do the program for getting more juniors in. How do we get those in? And one specific physical thing that we've done is that every year in NFO we have a new TD. Female TD every year, but the TD from last year is this year's assistant TD. So we don't put the new one as assistant TD because then they will never become a TD. You have to put them as the TD and have assistants on the side.
That's a great idea to create schooling.
Yeah, and if we can continue and go through with that and actually focus on training a friend, us women, to train a friend to do the same thing, then we get more women to do stuff, more people to actually, because these programs are epic, But we need more people to join. Now I'm giving up NFO. I have 4 women taking over. I have 2 people want to be the next leader of NFO. And that's really cool. That's epic. So I'm here maybe for the last time as representing NFO except as co-founder. So that's really great. And that's because I've always worked on giving it on. It's not mine. It's the women's. And I think that's important to look at a local level as well.
I would like to make use of having 2 of world superstars like Holyn and Anniken. We are always talking about this iceberg, the base of the iceberg at the grassroots level, but I would also like to cover the tip of the iceberg. FPO competition is growing. The superstars on FPO competition are very important. In fact, I made a study about the Instagram followers, top 10 European FPO, top 10 European MPO, and the distribution was something like 57-43%. So the top female, Anniken was on that list, were always grabbing the same number of followers that the top MPOs, at least in Europe. No? What do you feel about the growth of disc golf, of professional disc golf in FPO categories? What do we need to accomplish to make it even better, to have more people becoming full-time pros? Is it a matter of regulation? Is it a matter of payouts? Is it a matter of women-specific big events like US Women DGC? How do you feel about this subject?
There's a lot of things I think that go into it, and I think the Pro Tour has done a very good job of specifically trying to grow the women's side, like by doing 50% payouts for all the Pro Tour events instead of 40% like we see on the men's side. Also, the amount of added cash, it's not divided proportionately. The women get a little bit more. And that's to try to make the last cash something that the women can live off of. Because that's the hard thing about our payouts is they're still very largely based on field size. And so until our field size gets big enough, we don't have as big of payouts. And when you don't have the minimum amount to actually go on tour is the same for the men and the women. I would argue possibly a little bit more even for the women, because I think from like a safety perspective, you're less likely to have a woman go buy a really old beat up van and build it out and live in that. We're gonna want something that's a little bit safer, you know, able to stay at campgrounds or Airbnbs, and that of course is a little bit more expensive. So I think, you know, lowering that barrier to entry by making it more affordable for the like lower level players to get their start, I think is huge, and part of that's going to be, you know, transportation costs, lodging costs. Like if there's a way to make any of those things a little bit lower, that's going to be very helpful. And then, yeah, continuing the 50% payouts, I think is a really good thing. And then on the course design side of things, people want to watch good competition. And so when we're playing layouts that aren't the appropriate distance for what we're able to do, it's very boring. And so we've seen that as the courses are better designed for us, the competition is more exciting. You're able to see the skill level that's actually out here because it's very high. And as our field gets bigger, we're seeing more people in the mix. You're not seeing the same person winning every single week, and that makes it more exciting. And like you said, there's a lot of people who like to watch the women more because they feel like it's something they can relate to. It's maybe something that they can learn from. And so I think, you know, leaning into that, there's maybe something there as well. Because, yeah, the more women we get on tour, the more competitive it is, the more people want to watch, the more people are willing to put money in it, and it all kind of grows from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Holyn says. There's a lot of good points there. But when you talk about like that we're still not as many FPO players at a top level as the MPO, I think we also should look at the national associations. This year, earlier, I was so lucky that I attended the national camp in Sweden, because Norway, they don't have any. And just to be able to compete or to practice with other top players and see how they do it, and also have recruit teams. I don't know any countries that do that yet, but to have both national camps for the top athletes, but I also think we should have like scouts to look at the recruit level and to say, hey, we see you as an FPO player. Do you want to try to really get on tour and have like a system that helps them, that get them in touch with the rest of us top players? I think that might be an option to look at how we can grow the FPO top level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also on top of that, disc golf is a very young sport, and I think most of the money that it is in the sport comes from the sport. The players are sponsored by the disc golf brands. The prizes come from the field payouts, and we don't have that much money outside of the sport. And I think it's not only for the pro players to like create their brand, but I think it's also everyone's responsibility to show that this is a real sport, and there is a potential to attract sponsors outside the sport. And I think that at least here in Finland now, after the World Championships, we have a great potential to actually attract companies outside of the sport. And we always need to remember that we represent the sport and how it looks to people who haven't even heard about it and who might be the ones who are holding the wallet to pay things out. So I think that also we need to have money outside the sport to grow the tip of the iceberg and also the position of women on that sense.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would actually like to challenge PDGA Europe and PDGA globally to research a bit more and see how well represented women are in disc golf companies. For example, how many women work at Discmania? How many women work at Innova? How much is the pay difference between the players who are sponsored by the different ones to see if it's actually is equal based on, even if it is the brand of the player, is someone, like, how is it actually? Just to do the research. And also how many women are involved in PGA DGPT. I love seeing women running with the camera at DGPT at Cool. That was awesome, finally. And it is a young sport, as you say, but if we can get focus on it, it's easier to actually be aware of it. Because when we don't talk about it, when we don't look at it, it's you just run in your same shoes. Mm-hmm. And we also talked on the bus, me and Anniken, that women are not the same when it comes to marketing. When it comes to social media, we're not the same. And we need different training. And if we're trained by boys, maybe we're not be giving the best opportunity as we could have. We could actually earn you guys more money if we're actually trained on a better way. So we could actually look at strategies on how to get more money out of the female players as well, and then pay them more. So I think there's a lot of things there. Because we're so young, there's a lot of growth development where we can earn the sport more money.
Yeah, and I also like what Holyn said about that there are different kind of players and they have different kind of personalities. I think that there is a lot of potential to create personal brands to attract different companies, but that also requires, and I think that many of the players don't have managers like they who are running their like errands what is not related to playing. So, well, young sport. We are developing, and we need to have the front runners on many areas, and also cooperating within women.
Caroline, you're the... Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to actually expand on what everybody was saying. We are a young sport. And so one of the things, the conversation earlier about the Olympics. So the IOC, the Olympic Committee at this point, recognizes all disc sports as one sport. Obviously, we are not one sport. There are many disc sports. But because it's considered still a niche sport, a small sport, it is flying disc sports. So disc golf, ultimate, beach ultimate, even though if you go to the World Flying Disc Federation website, you will see the disciplines, including freestyle, the field games. It's all one sport under the IOC. What does this mean? That we can learn from this? If we get big enough, this will obviously change. But what can we learn from this? To develop disc golf, we need to focus on disc golf and not have, a million thousand sports already. We are getting big. This is obviously, we are getting bigger. But we can all be ambassadors. What we forget is that 99% of our media is consumed by disc golfers. In order to get bigger, everybody has to have in their mind that the person beside them that is not in a disc golf community event probably has never heard of the sport. Talk about it. When you are watching it, and tell people, and even the media, saying, I was just thinking about that this morning when you had the media, that was such an interesting thing. As a consumer of disc golf media, that I know obviously the sport, I don't need to be told that cards of four and what is happening with these cards of four that each person throws. But this kind of content is what is going to get people engaged that have never even heard of the sport. And so if we all go back to a beginner's mind in our general lives and be ambassadors for the sports, that will also help
Anniken.
The sport.
Just to add on to that, I think that the Disc Golf Festival in Tallinn has done a good job at promoting it towards the regular guy in the street. Because when you have the event on Tuesday, when you have the Superstar Challenge, it's a completely different format that we play, and it's easier for a person who's never really watched disc golf to understand the concept there. And maybe that's another way to go to attract more people into the sport.
Yeah, I would like to make a last topic before opening the questions turn, so feel free to ask now. I would like, Caroline, you are the organizer of the Nordic Female Open, one of the top women-only events in Europe, like Ladies First in Czech Republic, we have 2 or 3. How do you feel about the possibility of creating big events, but women-only, a top-level competition? I mean, when you see other sports like golf is 100 times bigger than disc golf. They have the female tour. They have a whole tour. Of course, this is not feasible in disc golf. We are way smaller. How do you feel about the possibility of creating some kind of US women DGC, European style, with one of the big events, of course, in sync with the disc golf pro tour? Would it make sense to have an event with 144 women playing for big prizes at least once a year, or even a small tour if we make one in Norway, one in Czech Republic, or whatever? How do you feel? Do you envision that some events on the highest of levels could be women only? Is it desirable? Is it feasible?
Well, personally, I feel scared. The nightmare of getting sponsors, to getting the added cash. It's hard already to get sponsors and get the time to do a small tournament. So I think it's tough at the moment because we're not enough women who are organized, and we have to rely on the men again, and it's not going to be their first priority. The people who already organize in disc golf have their tournaments. You have people doing PCS in Norway, you have Kokol, you have Hestdagen, you have the big ones, and they have to focus on those as well. And for things to be successful, you have to be able to grow them. I would love to see a European version, but also we have to then do it off season because the season is full. You know, so shall all women from Europe drop through to go to Europe, or should it be a part of the Europe tour so someone else don't get to do their competition? We have to look at what it actually brings in. What does a women-only event bring in? Does it need to be on top level, or do we do a middle level in the same city as the top level? I think we should look at the format and discuss it. I would learn to love more from the US, how they've done it, but they've also managed to get it in the tour. So it actually fits in. And disc golf now, like locally as well, all the courses are full of tournaments. People are competing all the time. So it's tough. Basically get room. I think something else have to go, and I don't want to see anything go.
Holyn, how do you feel about the US Women DGC? It's such a special event. It's throw pink also. We have big women-specific events in the U.S.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, you know, U.S. Women's is on the tour, but because of the packed schedule, it always kind of feels like it just gets squeezed in there. I know every year, usually when we have a 4-day multi-course tournament, we have the week off beforehand, and that gives us a chance to have some rest and to really make sure we learn the courses, but that's never true for U.S. Women's. U.S. Women's is always right after a 3-day event. There have been years where it's a 10-plus hour drive from a 3-day event, and then we're having to play a 4-day event right after, so it does kind of get shoehorned in there. But I do think it's a really good event for growing the sport because you've got a lot of the junior and amateur and age-protected divisions there with the top pros. They get access to us in a way that they don't at any other event. Because if I go to a practice round, I give myself an extra 20 minutes because I know I'm going to run into a lot of people who want to chat, and I want to make sure that I have time for that. And I think that gets when women get so excited for those events because of that interaction with the pro players and because of all of the extracurriculars that are around it. So I think it's a fantastic idea. But like you said, that's so hard to schedule. Because U.S. Women's has been around for a very long time. And then there's also that debate of, should U.S. Women's be the major? Should throw pink be the major? Should we have 5 majors? And I kind of advocate for keeping U.S. Women's as the major because because it's a major, that's why all the pro players go. You have to go. It's one of your 4 opportunities to win a major every year. And I don't know that they would add a women's only major in Europe. But, maybe there's some way to do it. Maybe there's some way to...
One idea.
Oh, let's hear it. Why am I talking?
I can organize a reversed tournament where women aren't focused. So it's maybe we'll get an MPO layout, maybe not. Maybe we'll get, yeah, that would be so much fun. The men can come as well. You, of course, don't have as many places and not that big payout, but we can do a reversed tournament. So that would be fun. Huh? That put it on the spot.
Okay,
I do that, no problem.
we open the questions turn first with René Mikkelsen from Denmark.
Yeah, my name is René. I have multiple hats on. I'm the country coordinator for Denmark. I'm the Danish disc golf guy as well. I'm here actually specifically, well, almost specifically, to follow Cassandra, our Danish FPO player. And you're kind of taking me away from that because she's at the putting competition right now. So thank you, I think. You talked about the PDGA Europe Women's Group where you only have 69 members?
107.
Yeah. So I
those are
understand
the
that
good
this
ones.
group is private because, of course, you don't want creeps to get in there. But how do I tell we just this year finally got a woman on our national association. How do I tell her about this group?
So even though it's private, there is join links in PDGA Europe, both in on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay,
so you can access it.
So on the PDGA Europe website, there is a
Yes.
link to it. Okay,
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I think that was it. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for a spectacular thing to listen to, and thanks to you guys for being such good role models. I wanted to ask, because I know there's plenty of clubs in Norway that want to build a bigger female field, and they feel that they've tried, but they've kind of run out of options. Maybe they didn't think of too many, but are there a place for resources for also male-based clubs, I guess, that can get advice to how to build a better FPO club?
At the moment, I don't know if PGA have their own thing that's for women, but we're working on NFO to not just be a tournament. That's why we got new resources in. So hopefully we will get people join a one disc challenge and get some money in so we can start an ambassador program where we want women who are already playing to volunteer their time for boards that don't have women in them. So they can actually be like a mentor, a female mentor into men clubs to help them. We also want to help create standardized ladies' days and so on. Also challenged Sofía here to see if we can create like a certification of what is a woman-friendly tournament, and maybe they can apply for scholarship for the whole tournament, if they not just the women but for the men as well. You know, all of these things. So there's too little. But what I can say, if you know anyone right now that needs help with layouts or something, please contact us, and we're more like, we would love to join. The TD this year created an epic layout for the amateur level. It's called the Pink Layout at Hesthagen, and it was so much fun. Like if you played on par, it was 880 rated, which was fun for an FA4 player. But the thing is that it challenged the women so much. You couldn't lay up, you couldn't do up shots to be safe. You had to go for it, which created, yeah, you're laughing because it was so, you created competitive place on the course, and we have so many more women now than we had just 2 years ago that can join in those. So if there's anyone that wants advices or something, please contact us because we've already done it. So please contact us, no problem.
Yeah, I know that the Swedish National Association did a survey a few years ago, and they put that all together with a lot of good ideas of how to improve the women's field and how to promote women's disc golf. So I'm sure there can be some collaboration of getting a hold of that.
Yeah, tack.
And just a quick add-on here that we in the Women's Committee, we have an initiative to create a checklist for TDs, how to create a women-friendly event. So that is ongoing, and hopefully we will get something out really soon to be in your use.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. First of all, Caroline, there's the European Championships every other year. So you can actually host the women's European Championship every other year. Awesome, yeah. Just a thought, because we can squeeze that in, so maybe we can squeeze another one in.
I think I have some meetings here during this tournament to talk to some people about this.
I think so, yeah. And also I wanted to touch a little bit on the subject that especially Holyn talked about with the field and the field sizes. Because taking this, for example, Worlds here, I know that, especially from Sweden, there are a lot of good players that are around 900 rated that are not here because the spaces went out. There weren't enough places for us to register. And looking at the fields and the field sizes, the FPO is 44% of the field here. And I think actually it could easily be 50-50. Having two courses would have actually given us the opportunity to have MPO playing one course and FPO playing one course, kind of. Is it like that in the US as well, going on tour? Is there too few places for FPO to register? Is it a panic kind of to push the buttons?
Yeah, I mean, my first year on tour, I didn't have a tour card, so I did have to do the tiered registration and try to get in there really quick. I find for the earlier tournaments, because there's just less daylight, they have to restrict the field sizes a little bit more, so it'll be 44 or so spots, and then a lot of times the later, like in the summer, they'll have more spots, and we usually don't end up actually filling up tour spots at all of our events, and so they end up giving those extra spots back to the men. I do think that that the pool system that we use at Worlds is something we could use at other multi-course events where you have the top half of the men and women play one course while the bottom half play the other, and then you shuffle after 2 rounds. I do think that's probably the best way to expand field sizes, because I know there's usually, if you look at the wait list for Pro Tour events, there's maybe 1 or 2 women on the wait list, and then you'll have 20 men on the wait list, so it doesn't really feel fair to take more spots away from the men. I think we need to create more spots overall, and I think those multi-course events are probably the best place to do it. Yeah.
So also to answer your question, I think partially the issue here in this particular event, because of the global representation, there's a lot of MPO players that are the only participant representing a certain country.
Yeah, just to comment on field sizes, I mean, because what you're saying, we have a smaller field, which means that the FPO lead card is going out at 9:30 in the morning, and and at the same time, the fan zone for the fans doesn't open until 11. So the consequence is that the women get less attention. There's less opportunity for the fans to be impressed and admire the FPO play unless you follow the card. Yeah, I just really wish that there was a breakfast club for watching the FPO lead card, and I think that's just a missed opportunity and a consequence of the smaller field size.
Yeah. And I have one comment though. I actually would like to challenge the 50-50, because the whole sign-up deal, as we talked about a bit earlier, women do behave differently generally. So we should look at PGA rules and how they do with first come, first serve, and so on. It's built by men for men, not on purpose to include women. It's just it works for men, but it doesn't work for women the same way. And I don't think there's any harm on stating that it should be 50-50 in the start and give a week or something for women to take the places and then give them up. If you know what I mean, something should be done there to give women a chance to be women. That we don't have to turn to a male culture to actually fit into this sport, but we can actually make the sport ours as well. And then, yeah. Thank you.
Well,
but
90
the fan
minutes.
zone should open before.
90 minutes have passed, and it seems like we have just scratched the surface. I would like to thank Holyn, Anniken, Caroline, Ida, Sofía, Terhi, all of you there in the other side. I feel that it's an excellent idea. I'm very proud of the work that PDGA Global and PDGA Europe Women's committees are doing on the growth of the sport. And I feel that we need more activities like this to really hear the women point of view. Maybe we think that we assume that we know what's going on and we don't really know. So I hope that it's not the last one. At least we'll have another one in Bilbao. And I hope that this kind of open forums and debates can be repeated in more big events to have this golf where we want it to be, both in male and in female divisions. Thank you very much again, and a big applause for our speakers.